Black space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
Hello, I'm George Middleton, your host this evening on this podcast episode of Black Space Live. For the topic of our discussion today, we're going to examine the question, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Before we get into the show, I would like to take this time briefly to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. In other words, don't be selfish with this content. Share the love. You can catch Black Space Live on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify. And you can also catch us on Anchor FM, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Next, let's introduce our panelists for today. Welcome, panelists, and beginning with Desi, please take a moment to introduce yourself and tell the watchers, viewers, and listeners anything that you would like them to know about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Desi. I'm happy to be here this evening, and I'm a blogger at judeandolive.com. I share a lot of content about life as a Black mother, a Black woman, and just general lifestyle content on my blog. So if you like that kind of information, follow me, and I am looking forward to discuss this topic. It seems pretty interesting.
Welcome, Desi. And Lakita.
Yes.
What would you like them to know about you?
Yes, my name is Lakita Bill. I am a mother of three, and I am an artist and designer and creator at 528 Hertz. That is my company. We design jewelry and clothing. Also, I'm a recent graduate of the Sacred Woman program. It was a wonderful process, and was glad to be able to go through that. And I'm also a member of the Black Love School. So I'm happy to be here and share my input on this interesting topic tonight.
Well, welcome, Lakita.
Welcome.
So let's get into it. It's just such an interesting question. It's an age-old question. It seems to stand the test of time. So let's test it. The question usually revolves around issues like sex before marriage, babies without being married, children without marriage. In my day, we called it shacking up. What do they call it in your day?
Same.
Yeah, that's what it's called. You're shacking. My grandma used to say that, and
Okay.
aunts would say that as well.
Okay. So at least that part has remained consistent.
Hmm.
So, just those three areas usually involve or significantly associated with this question. And you all, I shared with you kind of the train of thought that I was on that this question elicited within me. And between the time that I submitted those questions to you, I've had additional conversations, and I come to understand there's really the male perspective to this issue and the female perspective to this issue. And then there is the traditional perspective to this issue and the more contemporary perspective to this issue. So we may need to attack this in layers, and let's just start with the basic traditional male perspective. And I guess I would frame it. Let me give the psychological framework to this. Have you ever heard of this adage that men use love to get sex and women use sex to get love?
Never heard that.
Interesting, because that is something that's back in my day. When you hear that, what does it make you think?
Hmm. It makes it seem as though women weaponize sex to a degree in order to get what they want. So it's another thing that demonizes the woman to a degree. I don't think I like that term. Her mama don't like that.
For me, I think that I have to dig a little bit more deeply into what exactly it means, but just from hearing it for the first time, I'm thinking that maybe I agree with it. I do believe that by nature, women use what they have naturally in order to get that adoration, comfort, and security from men. That's the only thing that we have that men will barter to get that from them. If you don't, if you don't use your sexuality to get love for them from them, then I don't think there's anything else we have to use that they would want that we could kind of break them down in that way to get to the softer side of them. As far as women using, as far as men using love to get to sex, I don't know about that. They definitely use the tactics to get you infatuated. I don't know if it's love, but they definitely use, endearing tactics to try to get to that place with you. So I agree with it. I think I agree.
Coming from my experience as a young man, uh, a more traditional setting, the male and female roles were definitely more defined. There were more of the stereotypical ways of looking at relationships as compared to now. Uh, that was the young man's motivation, was to get the affections of the woman that he desired. Without the commitment was not in the forefront. Young men coming up, that's not the natural default. I'm looking to be committed. Uh, the messaging for most young men was to, another old school term, sow your seeds. Sow your wild oats, excuse me. Sow your wild oats. So to get all that craziness out before you become monogamous, mature enough to be in a monogamous relationship. Now, I'm not sure how effective that learning approach was, especially in view of today in terms of the statistics of marriage, relationships, children, and babies. However, that was the typical mindset. And so at that point, without trying to tell on myself, men, we're capable of doing some really stupid things. Looks like we lost the host. Hopefully she'll be back. But you play the game to get the affections of the woman that you desire. And she's looking usually for some expression of commitment, some expression of being special. And so me as a young man, I'm going to say those things more likely in order to do that. Now for me, I won't say that I was just like cold-blooded, cold-hearted with it. I was more of the naive type. I really had no game as a kid. Don't have much more game now. But then I had no game whatsoever. So I was more into just authenticity of a person. If I saw a woman, a girl at that time, not really a woman, a girl at that time, hey, she caught my interest. I We what we did, see, in my time, the men had to pursue. The men had to do the initiation. The men had to court. The men had to. He had to work to gain her affections and attentions. And as my primary work is as a mental health therapist, and I work with youth and families in particular, young men today. When I tell them that, it's like it's totally foreign. It's like, you do what? No, man, we don't do that. So the game is totally different today for young people. When I give you that experience, what do you think about that?
I do notice that also today. It seems as if men, they don't have to pursue women anymore. When it relates to the topic of why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free, that is probably the area that I feel that is important, because as far as saving yourself for marriage, I think that concept, it may not be outdated for everyone, but I don't think you're going to find a lot of people doing that. So if that's your idea of getting the milk for free, I don't think that really relates. But when it comes to that idea, that concept of women pursuing men, or men feeling like they don't have to pursue women, or they just have their choice of women, I do feel like that is a real breakdown in our community, because men, in my opinion, by nature value what they have to work for. So you're going to get that commitment out of a man that has to work for something, whether it's working for a long time employer, working for a wife, working for its children. That's where men mature and find their commitment, in my opinion. But if they're not having to work for something and everything's just being given to them, in this case, the milk, the household duties, and anything they want, then no, I don't think. I do think that may be where that disconnect lies in our community with commitment and marriage.
Lakita, were you able to catch that part of our discussion?
No, no. I'm sorry, I had a bit of an internet issue. So could you repeat the topic or the question?
Well, I was just sharing the difference of the era. In my time, young men had to work and do all the pursuing, the initiation, the courtship. You know, we had to get our rap on, right? We had to be the man, and the one we were the pursuers, and the ladies were the pursuees, and we put the work in order to gain the affections and the attentions of our desired female interests. And then I mentioned that I work as a therapist and I work with youth and families primarily, and the young people that I speak with today in my work have no idea about that style of courtship, and pretty much say, "Oh man, no, we don't do that. That ain't how we roll out here." They don't like to call it a relationship. We're not going together. There's not on both sides. It's like there's no expectations on each side. They're just hanging out, and that's it.
I think that that's a great topic, and it's a lot of layers to why we got like that as a people. One of the things I can say is that I'm gonna say starting since the 70s, there's been a mass deprogramming of our people to where love and relationships have been put on the back burner. You used to see these things in cartoons, like, the guy bought the girl flowers, so our children knew to do it. I remember seeing Tiny Toons in the morning and seeing, the little skunk Pepe Le Pew, court the other cat and get on her nerves. You saw it, and children saw these things, but now you don't see that. The children are not being taught that, so that's possibly why the generation doesn't know anything about courtmanship or how to be nice to a woman, it's actually cool to be rude, and it's cool to be loose and to, not value your body or to not value having a relationship. These things are the new thing to do. So it's difficult in the dating scene. I'm worried for my 15-year-old because it's not a hot girl summer up in here. Take that. No, we're not buying that. You can't wear that. No, we're not doing that. So it's particularly directed toward our community. You only see our women behaving that way. You only see our men. I don't love them. I only mess with my men. I'm like, wow, do you like women? It just, you guys seem like you don't even like us anymore. So it's a it's a lot of the things that Dr. Kress talked about in the ISIS papers, as far as the feminization of men and the basically women becoming harder. That was done on purpose. The strong black woman adage, you don't need no man, you're INDEPEN. I ain't gonna lie, I sung that song. That was my thing. But that I went through my whole phase, as they call it. So I know all about it. But at the same time, I'm coming from broke Birmingham, Alabama. I'm coming from poverty. I'm coming from a broken home, made during a conjugal visit in Limestone prison. Literally, dad was on work release. My mom came to visit, and that's how I got here. So I'm coming from a system of oppression that started with my parents and snowballed into me not knowing how to have a proper relationship because my parents did not know how to have a proper relationship. So a lot of this programming that you're seeing now is coming from grandma and granddad had a marriage, but it wasn't exactly stable. And dad saw that. And that is what happened with my mom. And then now I have to deal with that now at 36 years old. So it's like generations of brokenness now have culminated into guys not knowing how to be men. And every video is a black man with a wig on acting like me. And every other video is a angry black woman yelling about what men not doing. It's a lot.
So that's interesting, and it's making me, when I'm hearing you talk, it's generating more questions for me. And one of the questions that uh, it makes me curious on is the goals of the man and the woman. In the question, why buy the cow? That's a goal oriented question.
Hmm.
Are men and women, are their goals the same, or are there even goals now? What are your thoughts?
I actually, when you posed that question, in text, that's exactly what I was thinking, because although I definitely am aware of the systematic suppression of Black people in this country, I often wonder, how long are we going to chant about that when we are clearly evolved enough as a people in this country to recognize what has been done? And we should be at a point of self correcting. So
Mm,
when you talk about buying the cow, it's not so much just about sex or homemaking, but it's about building. And is it worth buying the cow on either front, the man as the cow or the woman as the cow? Does that man have any goal that he is attempting to reach that he needs a team to reach? Does that woman have any goal that she's attempting to reach in life that she needs a team and a family to reach? And I think the biggest issue is just that. One of the biggest issues, at least, is that no, there are no goals. The only goal seems to be is to make money. And they don't even know, people don't even know why they even need to make money. It's just make money. So then we come to this place where, okay, well, if the only goal is to make money, you can make your money, I'll make my money. Why do we need to be married? So there is a complete disconnect from our culture to the purpose of capitalism and society. Now, as Laquita is stating eloquently, you know, our this may not capitalism may not be our natural space, but at some point we have to recognize that this is the space we're in. This is the space that we've been thrown into. We are at some point going to have to start thriving in this space because we're not going back to Africa. We're not going back to our origins, even when people try to. Even Africans don't even accept us as that. So we have to come to a self-realization that we are Africans in America. That's who we are. That's our culture. We don't have some other culture that we can go back to where we are supposed to be polygamous and men are supposed to, it's a matriarchy. I get it. And it could be true, but it's not realistic. It's not forward thinking. And it's not something that seems to actually be able to be contrived to come to life. I had a friend, I don't want to go on too long, but I had a friend. She was a part of a certain organization that believed in this kind of, our original roots were polygamist, and she didn't believe in traditional marriage. And she had a particular ceremony within her group that said that they were married and they were, they were married, husband and wife, which is fine. But here's my problem when it comes to Black men when they misdirect Black women in that direction. As soon as they had a rift in their marriage, and they did still go toward, to the courts, her so-called husband was the first to say, we're not really married. That's not a real marriage. So when it comes to these African or traditional religions and beliefs, if that's something that we're going to pursue, it needs to be recognized by the state. We still live in this state and in this country. We can't just go around making rules that don't uphold anything. People going around saying they're married, they're not even married. They're saying they're committed to something and they're out of it the next weekend. I feel strongly about this because I've been married for a long time. I've been married for 16 years. So I know the ups and downs of a committed relationship. It is a commitment in the true sense of the word. It is not anything other than that, a true commitment. And we're not even making a commitment to the type of, as a community, to the type of family structure that we want to have. We haven't even committed to whether we're going to be polygamous, whether we're going to be monogamous, whether we're going to do this 50-50 thing they have going on. It's very confusing. So I'll give the floor to someone else.
So you mentioned we need to evolve. We need to accept where we are. There's no other place to go. It is what it is. We're Africans born in America. Who takes the lead on that? If there's no goals, who determines the goals? And who's really in charge of this male-female dynamic in order to steer our family direction, our qualitative family direction back on the right track? Who is ultimately responsible for the healthy trajectory of the male-female relationship?
That's a good question. And it seems as though when people think about African religion or African relationships, they think with multiple wives, and they think of something that doesn't belong to us because certain people in Africa don't claim us, and people over in America don't claim Africa. They say they're indigenous. Everyone has their own, belief system, and that's perfectly fine. But me and my husband, we are both married, and we are married under ma'at, which is perfect balance. So when you see a ankh, you see the woman on top, the man that as a support holding her up, and the children, which is our legacy. So that is our goal. So anytime you see that symbol, it doesn't just mean eternal life. It means eternal life through the holy union of man, woman, and child. Because a lot of the problem, again, as I was saying earlier, is that we have our relationships, even our sexual relationships, are coming from a place that our oppressors taught us. That's why it doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. When we are relearning how to make love and not have a sexual relationship that's sadistic, because that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with sadistic sexual encounters that are not producing children out of a love from a loving state that spills over into the streets of the community. So you have children that are not born into a loving home with a loving mother and father because we're trying to live under a system that was never made for us to prosper. Um, Ma'at works for us. It's 42 laws to it. They're very similar to the Ten Commandments. Um, we work together. Our goal, of course, is legacy, which is to teach our children, educate them, keep their head in the books, and from that, wealth will automatically happen.
How
You
do you
don't have to go.
how
Hmm?
do you how do you spell it? Did you call it Ma'at?
Ma'at, Maat, Ma'at. The laws of Ma'at, 42 laws. Um, We both have our rings made by a Kemetic priest in Harlem, Baba Haru. Um, you know, I really think that as a people, we have to get back to that building wealth within our relationships. So that should be the goal. But the goal is not there because we don't really understand the financial structures in this country and how they operate and how a marriage is an actual corporation. When you join together, all your taxes come together and all these new tax holes open up that you didn't know about that you only get when you become married. All these business loopholes and grant opportunities open up because now you're in a new tax bracket because now there are two incomes instead of one. This information is purposely kept from us to keep our backs turned to one another where I can say I don't need you and I don't need you because they don't really understand how financially it will benefit you to marry a woman with children, sir. Those are called tax dependents. Everything they you purchase for them will be written off. A lot of people don't understand that. So they don't see the value in a woman that's had children before, or they don't see the value in getting with someone and growing in a loving state and being vulnerable simply because they see it as being weak or they see it as being inferior in some type of way. So I want to digress back to we got to stop demonizing African culture and what we come from. And we got to stop saying, we're not accepted there because we are. There are.
So the question, uh, the you really bring up some very enlightening thought paradigms from a cultural perspective that sheds light on some of our behaviors uh, as a racial demographic. And when I say racial demographic, I use the word black. Um, my question would be in a more uh, current application. Are women giving sex too easy? And,
Okay.
and is that even a concern? Is that even a thought or a consideration for today's woman?
Um, I want to make it clear first that I am not in any way demonizing African traditions or religions. I am only saying that spending years in an African tradition that is not upheld or respected in the country that you live in, when you present it for certain things that you may need to present it for, like taxes or trusts or wills, is working backwards. That's all I'm saying. Now, as far as women having sex too easily nowadays, absolutely not. I don't believe that women are having sex too easily. Women are having sex with whoever they want to have sex with, but I don't think that that's anything new. Okay, my mother was born in the 50s. She had my brother when she was 17 years old. Like, sex before marriage is not a new thing.
Not a new thing. Okay.
And my mother had a young child and she married my father. So I don't think, again, back to your point, that buying the cow really has that much to do with sex. Sex is obviously a part of a marriage. But when it came to my parents' marriage, my father was growing. He was growing a family. He was buying real estate. He was moving his family to the area that he wanted to live in. He saw my mother fit as the woman to do that with. You know, men have a vision too. And I think a lot of times women forget that, because we are always kind of trained to see men as just like these animalistic people that's just out for sex from everyone. And I understand it, because sometimes men say that. But also, they also have a vision for their lives, and you have to respect that. And when they find the woman that fits that vision, I do believe they're going to marry her. They always do. Now, some of them may feel like, some of them may never meet that woman, and some of them may be a little bit too loose and sowing their oats to ever mature to that place. But for the most part, I do feel like, back to your other question, it leans on those men, the ones that do have a vision, to guide our community to a place of respect in this society, because that's what we're working to get to. I saw another guy online speaking on this, saying that we have to have self-respect for ourselves and for our community. In other words, we also have to, in some way, get on the same page. When you talk about the Black community, there's so many different belief systems, so many people and so many groups trying to create this way or that way. And I see Lakita is back, and I wanted to ask you more about your marriage under Ma'at, because when I personally speak about marriage, I do agree with you. I feel that marriage is very much a financial tool and a financial commitment that involves a bloodline. So that makes it so much stronger than that corporation that, or that LLC that you might just start with your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Queen Elizabeth just died. That monarchy is 1,200 years old. That's impressive. That's a family.
Yeah.
So to just push everything, put that aside, or say, well, that's nothing because she's white or she killed Black people. That is an impressive feat. That should be our goal as a people, to have that kind of strength and that kind of
togetherness
and unity.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
I was born into Christianity, but I'm not one of those people that would ever say, well, that's nothing, or, Hebrew, or I feel like we really need to come to a place of unity, because none of it is getting us anywhere. Buying the cow, getting the milk free, that is the least of our concerns, really.
Okay, so let's get some clarity on your wasn't really a correction, but you wanted clarity to let Lakita know that it wasn't anything against the African culture, so to speak. Lakita, did you hear speak on that?
Yes.
What are
She
your
said
thoughts?
she wanted more clarity about Ma'at, right?
Right.
Okay, so Ma'at is one of the oldest African, it dates back to ancient Nubia. Ma'at is what the Christian church is actually built on. That except for they took the woman and the child out of the structure and put the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost and gave you a cross. So it's basically African culture redressed and delivered in the form of patriarchy in order for men to control the world. These men who control the world are the same men that are Queen Elizabeth's children. They are part of that family as well. These people did this for genetic dominance only because they understood the power that came behind unity. Um, I chose to go back to my aunt and to step away from the Christian church because I don't see it working for my people. I see a lot of fakes and frauds. I see a lot of people flying private jets, wearing designer clothes, Rolexes, Rolls Royces, and around them is a community where the property values are below the red line. Um, so I see it as a predatory thing for our people. And this is coming from somebody who was raised in a pastor's house for a moment. Before I ended up in foster care, I lived with an aunt who was married to a pastor of a church. And I understand how the church worked from the inside and out. I know what happened with the tithes, hit the bucket and go to the back door. So I understand the business behind the church and how it preys on people's hope for better, but instead of getting better, they get more of the same thing. Our having our marriages under that umbrella, it just doesn't make sense because it was never something that ever worked for us. When Black people had wealth in Africa, we were not married under the Christian church. We were married under the structure of Ma'at, which is man, woman, child. The children are to bring wealth to the family, and the women are to be the teachers, and the men are to be the support. We've gotten away from that. So bringing us back to that, there are a lot of Black people in America that are going back that way now. There is I see, because I'm a part of a lot of conscious spaces, a lot of women in mass healing, and a lot of Black men also in mass are healing. But the algorithms are designed to make you think that this stuff is not happening. The algorithms you see on social media are purposely putting forth that hateful content to keep you in that low vibration and mental space that's just not a real, true mental space, to keep you away from those spaces that are now opening up in mass through Queen of Four, through the Coma, Black Love, all these different avenues, Black mental health avenues are opening up. They want to keep that silent because they want to keep you in this state of mental bondage. If you just get the 42 laws of my art and look at it, that's it. We acknowledge those 42 laws. It's not difficult. And we drink water. A lot of it, because water is important. It's one of the most purest things on the earth. And also it goes into your body and knows exactly what needs to be nourished. So those are the things that we have that keep us together. And that balance, being able to come together and make decisions together makes us not feel like one person is less important or one person is not being heard. We're able to communicate. We're still working on it. That's why we are doing the Black Love School, to learn communication, to relearn how to speak to one another. Because when you're coming from toxic family households where all you have is yelling and turmoil and physical violence, you have to reapproach love in it from a different standpoint. You have to unlearn a lot of the bad behaviors you picked up as a child. A lot of us are in those trenches with me right now. A lot of us are unlearning a lot of toxic crap we had to go through as kids that's spilling over into our adult relationships right now. But
So
I
I,
think it's beautiful that a lot of us are healing from that.
so I see the connection you're making between our current condition today and our lack of cultural connection that you have reestablished for yourself. I asked Desi earlier, are women today having sex too easily? And she said she doesn't believe that's the case, that women and men have had sex before marriage throughout the time. How would you see that question? Do you agree there? And do you see this lack of cultural connection in any way connected to the sexual behavior patterns of men and women today?
Yes. I think, like I said, I went through my whole phase, all right? And I do see a disconnect. Women are too forward sexually, and men are too quick to jump into bed with just any old body. So I see that as going both ways. But I only think that's because we don't understand the value of our womb space as women, and men don't understand the value of their actual seed. They don't understand what it means every time they have an ejaculation. If they're masturbating or even with a woman, that's your life force you're spending every single time you do that. These spiritual connections aren't, we don't know about these things because these are things again that have been stripped to us and stripped away from us through our cultural or desensitizing that we've had since coming to America and becoming the great people that we are. We're at an advantage though, because not only do we have this land, we have an opportunity to start a new people here in America. Like you said, we're African Americans, we're a different type of African, so we do have an opportunity to reconnect back to the womb space and reconnect the man back to his life force and his energy and his power. Both are in our sex. That when you're in a relationship, you can make a baby. So that's why relationships are the highest form of human interaction you can have with another person. Um, I really think women are looking for the love and attention and are lost in this little hot girl phase that's going on right now, and they're hurt. A lot of them are looking for a father. They're looking for a father figure. They're looking for someone to love them like the love they've never had. And they're looking for it in the wrong place. And a lot of these men are looking for sexual validation only. And then that's it because they don't see the value in having a woman. They don't see the value in loving a woman back. So again, I just really think it's a lot of mental health issues on top of emotional like wellness issues, womb wellness, men's health issues in combination. So we got a lot of compounding issues that we have to work on health wise. So I know y'all gonna get tired of me talking about Dr. Chris, but her theory as into how to fix the community is really simple. Black men and women should not date seriously until 30 years old. I agree with that. You should not date seriously. You should limit your sexual interactions. You should work on educating yourself and healing any trauma that you got from being a child. That way, when you approach your 30s, you know yourself, you know what you want, you have a career, and you're able to enter that relationship with a clean slate and not jaded by anyone because you limited your sexual interactions. So I do think girls are too loose and the dudes swinging it everywhere.
Okay, so let's look at the reality of relationship patterns. I shared these statistics with you all earlier, so I'm going to read it again. Over the past 30 years, women have increased their presence in the housing market, with the home ownership rate of households led by women rising, while the home ownership rate of households led by men falls. This reflects two factors today. More women are head of household, and women have reached higher education and income levels, which can put home ownership into reach. 30 years ago, in married heterosexual households, a male partner was generally the main breadwinner and considered the household head. Over the past 30 years, the marriage rate has declined and more single women are household heads. From 1990 to 2019, the share of households headed by single women increased from 17.6% to 22.6%. Even among married two earner households, it is increasingly common to see women as the head. Among married households, the share of women heads of household increased 24.3 percentage points from 21.8% in 1990 to 46.1% in 2019. Also, and this was the one that really is very relevant and surprising in our community. Among married households, Black households had the highest share of women-headed households at 52.5%. So, in view of those statistical realities of marriage in general, and as it pertains to our community in specific, how do we right this ship? How do we make this question either have relevance or complete irrelevance, depending on what our goal is? Because as you said earlier, men and women today really aren't operating with goals in a relationship.
I think regarding those statistics, you could look at them and say that they're daunting, but I really don't think so. I feel that if we know that in this country, Black men are generally low earners. So I don't think that we should go in and demonize Black men for not having a PhD or some of the things that Black women have been able to accomplish, for whatever reasons that they have not been able to do that. Maybe they should look forward to becoming more educated and successful in that way. But I think to Lakita's point, those numbers and statistics that are always getting put out kind of skew our view of our community. Like just a statistic like that may make a young girl think, well, what do I need a man for if I'm going to be the head of household? Two incomes in a family help a family, period. Whether one of them is $30,000 and the other one is 70, that's a personal thing, but $100,000 is more than 70,000. So we have to dig through some of this stuff sometimes when we're reading the statistics and relate it to us and what we're facing as a community personally. That's what I feel.
Lakita?
I think those statistics really speak to the fact that our sons have not been taught to be educated. Our sons are not being pushed to be well spoken, educated men. Again, under my eye, my husband is the spokesman. Somebody knock at that door, even if I'm right there, one moment, he answers. You're the spokesman. I'm selling XYZ. He closed the door. We talk. I send him back out to interact with whoever's outside that door. Because just in case they try to come out of the bag, my warrior, he finna power up. He's the spokesman. Um, Even though sometimes I can take the lead on certain things, it's a lot of things he can take the lead on as well. So our roles in power here, it kind of flips day to day depending on how the day is flowing. A lot of that needs to be applied in our households today. Women are drained. We don't want to be the leaders. Let me tell you, we want the light life. We want to rest in our feminine energy and paint our nails and put our facial on and be in the tub relaxing. We want that life. But I don't think our men, again, are emotionally equipped to handle the duties that come with the house because they're not taught those things as little boys. So it's the upbringing, it's the rearing. Boys were taught to play football, play sports, be a rapper, chase the girls, that's cute. But they were not taught you need to go to school and get an education, or you need to go get a degree, or not even that, you need to get a trade that's going to make you a reasonable wage to where you can have something in life. Trades used to be a thing, but in the 80s, they started cutting that out because they started seeing our men being prosperous. So a lot of those trades that we were picking up, a lot of men, oh, I want to do that. That's hard work. They'd rather live under a woman. I've seen it in Florida. It's horrible. They'd rather live under a woman than work and make their own money, which is horrible. But that's just what we're dealing with. So I would like to encourage our brothers. There's nothing wrong with getting that degree, and there's nothing wrong with pursuing something that you're passionate about that's going to put money in your pocket. You can be a rapper on the side, okay? I'm a slam poetryist on the side, but I'm not trying to be on Def Comedy Jam or the Def Poetry Jam. I mean, if I get there, that'd be dope. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to do this thing with this insurance and make this money real quick and pay these bills. We have to find our niche and be good at it and let that turn our profit. So again, those numbers really just speak to how much work our black men have to do emotionally and mentally to be able to handle the household and also to be able to catch up on that education thing, actually go to school and finish the degree. Don't go there chasing the girls and drop out. I went to Dillard University. I saw a lot of them chasing the girls and dropping out. Yeah, and while we were the ones walking across the stage because we stayed focused. So that's how I feel about that.
I hear slight nuances, differences in nuance between Desi's perspective and your perspective.
A difference of perspective because I mean I've seen what she's speaking of, which is men that just take advantage of women. But regarding the statistics, I feel that and the light life, I was by trade, well, my occupation was a due diligence underwriter, and that is a very simple job if you know what you're doing, and you can earn a really good income doing it. A man may do very strenuous labor and make much less than someone makes doing that same job, just pushing a little paper and doing numbers. So I don't think that those numbers necessarily represent that those numbers represent that women are stressed out. I don't know if women are stressed out because sometimes I find myself a little bit jaded. I don't know. Maybe I don't get out enough. But I don't like to think that the majority of black men, adult black men, not boys, adult black men are out trying to become rappers. But that may be the case. I don't know. So that's a question that I would pose to you, because sometimes I think we focus so much on the negative behavior that we see men rapping and doing nothing, and we don't focus enough on the actual men in our community that are actually working, back to what you said, George, which are going to steer our community in a direction. Because at the end of the day, yes, we need to work on our mental health, all of us, but we can't spend that much time doing it. Like, we need to fast track. We need to get on a fast track here. Everybody can't stop and take 30 years to take care of their mental health. Or we're going to keep singing that same old song about how we started late and every other race has a head start.
There's a certain clinical definition for the type of therapeutic approach you're talking about, which is called solution focused, where you don't spend a whole lot of time exploring the problem as much as you focus on solutions.
And so, also, when I was in therapy, my therapist also gave me this. I just want to put this out here. A technique called radical acceptance. It was some things that were happening in my marriage I just couldn't get over, and she just said, look, Desiree, you're going to have to stop thinking about all that, and you're going to have to use radical acceptance. You're going to have to accept that this is what has happened, and go on from there. Some things I do believe that there's no healing from. There is no place that you can keep therapeutically building yourself until you forget that ever happened, or that's not an experience of yours. I think we need to realize that too, because also therapy is kind of being thrown around like a crutch or a catchphrase, like it's going to fix these toxic things that we have gone through. It's not going to fix it. The only thing that's going to fix it is knowing how to deal with it, and then having some self control over our behaviors.
So, uh, the reason I brought up the slight difference in nuance is because it gets to the strategy on addressing it. And again, I asked that question. Who's really in charge? Who takes the lead? So I want to explore that a little bit more. If women are not on the same page about their standards, does that matter? Can women being in the same community, women in the same cultural community, can women being on the same level of standards about what femininity is, about the role of women, the purpose of women, the value of women, can them being collective make a difference in the behavior of the men in their community?
I do think it's an issue with women being on the same page as far as the standard of being feminine and being a woman. Like Lakita is saying, her husband is taking the lead in the household. I was in one of my groups on Facebook, and I was trying to tell one girl about her lover that she has children with, and how she should, she has him back in the house, so she obviously wants him there. She didn't say he wasn't unfaithful or anything, so I was just trying to coach her through, and maybe you need to do some things to get him to see what direction that you're trying to go. And when I tell you, I got so much backlash from the other women in this group. Nobody has time to work things out. What? How can nobody have time to work things out? That's exactly what we're all doing. So when the going idea is just cut and run, no, I don't think women are on the same page, and I'm not on the same page with that idea. I think that's a huge waste of time to keep wasting your time with man after man after man, and thinking that you're just gonna somehow come across this man that fulfills everything for you, that you haven't added anything to this person at all. It's just some magical Prince Charming. So I don't agree. I do agree that women in our culture are not on the same page as far as the standard of being a woman and femininity in general.
Lakita?
Yes. Femininity and what it means to be a woman are not synonymous.
Mm.
They're not. They're not one and the same. Because femininity can look different for each woman depending on how their childhood was presented to them. If you're coming from the streets and you got uncle going upside your head, brother going upside your head, you going to school, somebody else coming upside your head, you finna be a tad bit more masculine, yang overload, mad, aggressive, very masculine woman. But those things only come from the environment that you've been in. Now, if you've been the princess, daddy's little girl, both parents at home, only thing you got to do is go to school and come back to your beautiful pink palace and, put your foo-foo slippers on and relax, doll. You're going to be this wonderful, sweet, feminine girl because you've been given the space to cultivate your feminine energy and rest in it. So I really think women aren't on the same page because we are not raised in the same environments.
Mm.
Our future relies on allowing our children to be in the proper environment in order to grow into being healthy adults. And I know you said, you can't do therapy all of your life and this, that, and the other, which is true. But for someone who was in therapeutic foster care and needed therapy even after, because I learned how to deal with the trauma as a child, but now I need to learn how to interact in these relationships as an adult. So there's more work that needs to be done. So there was levels to this thing that I didn't know I needed, which is why I went through my whole phase. So if I knew I needed that help coming out of foster care, I wouldn't have been spinning around the pole, man, catching all the $1 bills that was coming out of the air. Let me tell you, I did my whole phase to the maximum, and I ain't ashamed to say it because it's a testimony as into my story, as into where I come from, and how I felt as though I needed to empower myself. And I used that lie as into my sex was how I could empower myself, which is the lie all the girls are telling themselves right now. It's empowering. I'm twerking. Look at this booty. Look at these. I'm getting a BBL. I'm not gonna go to the gym and take care of myself. I'm gonna eat this fried chicken and then go get it sucked out and stuck in my butt. Like, this is the thing that's happening right now. It's so unnatural. Also, I really just saying a prayer for my people and prayer for our relationships to come together. But more so, I want the women to start really having more higher expectations and standards for themselves, and watch the men elevate just from us just doing that by ourselves. The men will naturally do elevate. They will. If it's as long as we are holding ourselves to a higher standard and we're not out here twerking and jerking, things will change. But as what I'm seeing, and what a lot of women want, love without the work that goes into it. They want a man to swoop in and buy them Louis and pay for some $100 nails, and that don't really matter. And it's everywhere. And it would be a woman you wouldn't even expect to have that type of mentality. I'm shocked sometimes when I get to know people. I'm like, you really feel like that, sis? I thought you was whoa, no, she's with that crazy life. So no, we not on the same page. A lot of women meet me and want to know more about what I'm into, or want to know more about healing, because we're realizing we are some traumatized people, and we got work to do. Even if you did it as a child, as an adult, do that work. Because if you do that work, then you're gonna know what your triggers are. You're gonna know what things you can't tolerate in a relationship. It's gonna keep you out of jail. Trust me, I know.
So, Desi, I saw you shaking your head no. What was that in response to?
I have to disagree with that. That's one of those statements. I firmly believe that a man will not rise to the occasion just because a woman is setting her standards up high. I do not believe that at all. As a matter of fact, I think that's a part of the issue that we have now, is that women have they're usurped the position, as far as the patriarchy is concerned, of men, and men are sinking to the occasion, and they're laying back and going ahead and letting them take care of them and everything else. It's a big issue when it comes to black men. I don't think it's a black woman problem. I think it's a black man problem. And spiritually, physically, black men are going to have to deal with it. Whatever that issue is, it's not a woman's issue. And I try not to bother myself with it, because it's very frustrating why black men don't see the importance of competing in the space with men of other races. I saw a black man recently saying that black women were taking all of their positions because black women were being CEOs and heads of corporations. And it just made me think, well, you know, that's just because other men are out there creating legacies, funds, hedge funds, and things like that for that. That's the level that they're on right now. And black men seem to be at this level of wanting to operate in the space of a woman. They want to operate in the space of the woman. They want to get that good job. They're not really competing with the men in the world. And that, to me, is a big reason why our community is always on a horizontal trajectory.
Yeah, that's really eye-opening to hear your perspective. One of the most powerful imagery that comes to mind about relationships is the vision of President Obama and his wife Michelle. And that was such a powerfully striking couple because they seem to both be two strong individuals individually, but were able to harness their male and female strength in a way that propelled them forward to go through probably one of the most challenging periods of their lives. I hear Lakita speaking more of the synergy of that type of relationship, and I hear you saying, "Nah, there's really not much to that. It's all on the man." Uh, you know, these behaviors they've been around forever. It's just people just have to get over stuff, and I love the term radical acceptance. I'm sure there's a lot of validity to that in many contexts. But there seems to be a chasm there. And as it pertains to our community, with that perspective, I mean, I'm sure there's more that think like you, Desi, about that. And I know there's women that think like Lakita. How do we bring these, how do we do that? Otherwise, this question is going to be around another 50, 100 years, and the statistics will most likely be worse. How do we bring it? How do we marry these?
I think solving that black man problem, because it is, I agree with you, Desi, on that. It's a problem. I think that's got a lot to do with their self-talk within they self. That what is their self-talk sound like? You see a lot of us here. Oh, I said my affirmations for today. You've been hearing that word, affirmations. A lot of us are doing a lot of reaffirming and self-esteem work and working on our self-talk. But I agree, Jesse. I don't see that on the other side of the aisle because that's seen as weak. And the spaces with one another, male interactions, they don't really go that deep and have those deep conversations because the fathers don't make a safe space for their sons to get emotional with them like that and to help elevate them when they may feel as though they are not enough to go into those spaces and be a conqueror and go to the top. So I really think the black man's self-talk needs to change drastically as into what they say they can and can't do, and the acceptance of behavior that they're willing to be around and engage in needs to change drastically as well. At a certain age, son, your shirt don't need to go down to your knees, okay? At a certain age, your pants should not be sagging. The dress, all of that has to do with up here. They're a grown men, but they're still stuck in a juvenile state which is why they're not evolving. And a lot of us are working through our mess because guess what? We've been stuck with a child. So now we have no choice but to work through this mud and make ourselves better because we see how this would affect our child. So a lot of those single mothers go to college, get the degree to get the good job. Why? Because we need to take care of these children by ourselves. That's why I did it. I got stuck with a baby by a man with a double master's degree, cum laude from University of Alabama. Left me with the baby. Mr. Kappa Shake shook right on off. He ran off on the plug, but the plug had a plan, and I got my insurance license, and life's been gravy since. That's perseverance. I had self-talk. Those things came from what? Me getting therapy when I was in foster care. So if I wouldn't have got that therapy, I wouldn't have knew how to talk myself through those situations and keep pushing and not break down. So if black men were equipped with the tools I was given through therapy, I really think that they could prosper and catch up financially as far as the job opportunities that black women have.
Okay, so listening to both of you, I've determined that you all have created a either a part two or another episode composed of the following three uh, assertions that I'm going to give you, and not for you to deal with them tonight, but to meditate until the next time we meet.
Okay.
Assertion number one, as it pertains to the African community, the male-female relationship is the foundation of our power, of our strength. Assertion number two, the African male here in America, and I would say globally, but definitely here in America, is under constant systemic attack more than any other cultural group, in a way totally unique than any other cultural group. Assertion number three, the African female is not fully capitalizing on her most important resource, which is her African warrior. And those are the three things that I hear that I think really deserve further discussion. That was really initiated by this age-old question: why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? And I'm not sure. Actually, I did get a lot of information. I'm not sure that question today, with today's psychology of the male and female, can be correctly answered. I'm not even sure it's relevant, because the expectations of the time when that question originated, they're no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
Both for male and female. There's an equality in so many ways in terms of being able to get things for yourself. It's changed the dynamics and the needs and expectations of the relationship. So typically I try to leave with some type of words of wisdom to deal with this question, but I'm not sure that would be beneficial or relevant for this question. So what I want to do is, as we get ready to close, is you all just share your words of wisdom. Take 30 seconds, share your words of wisdom for what you think our trajectory, our direction should be moving forward.
Okay, I'll go first. Our trajectory, that's a loaded, but I do feel that we should definitely focus on what we started out in the beginning saying, being a more goal-oriented people, because as it relates to our unions, because the cow nowadays, I think it does still relate, but the cow just has to come with more than just what we talked about, that sexuality. And that's on both ends. And then it will make sense to buy the cow on both ends.
The cow and the steer, or both cows?
These days,
yeah.
I'm not going to offend anyone.
Okay. Yeah. We'll leave it at it as where it stands. Lakita.
Yes. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? I want to leave everybody with, you have to really understand the value in the man, woman, child union. You have to really start valuing who you lay with and who you decide to have children with. Women and men both have to be more responsible with their genetic materials. Hold back a little bit. Make sure you're ready to go into that realm of parenthood. And if you're ready to build with that person, look them in the eyes when y'all drinking y'all Henny or whatever y'all doing before y'all get ready to do what y'all doing, and say, is this the one? If it's not, don't waste your time. Don't do it. Because in the long run, you're going to end up pushing yourself back and also setting him back as well, because now you have a child in a home that there's no love in. And nobody wants that. So really, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? I'm going to say this, the cows really have to be more selective in who they let milk them. Be more selective, ma'am.
Ooh.
And the, and the milkers got to quit grabbing every udder that's hanging and dangling. Every udder don't need to be yanked. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Just because it's got to be a lace front and was looking good, that Spanish weave in, don't mean she is going to hold you down when you break your leg and you can't go to work tomorrow. That don't mean she's going to be the one to wipe your tail if you end up laying in a hospital bed in a coma. You have to really start looking at people and asking those interview questions, as I call them. Are you going to be here when stuff get hard? If you can't answer those questions, then I would say you're wasting your time in that relationship and just go home and Netflix and chill by yourself.
Wow.
If you know what I'm saying.
That's a lot. Hangling and dangling.
That's right. Every other don't need to be yanked.
Wow. That's deep. That's a t-shirt. Well, this has been a great conversation. It's gone some directions that I didn't expect, and that's what I love about highly cerebral intellectuals such as yourself. And both of you are very easy on the eyes as well. So I can't complain. It's been very enjoyable. Hopefully, we'll either come back to continue this discussion some more, or meet again on some more, because there's plenty of issues in our community that need to be addressed. So thank you, Lakita. Thank you, Desi.
You're welcome.
This has been another great episode of Black Space Live. To you all, thanks for hanging out. Have a great week. And until the next time we meet, we'll see you in the Black Space.